Is joining me, and like I mentioned earlier, we will be talking about migration. My Our guest is Dr. Kamah Gueh-Thoronka. She's an immigration attorney. Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
That's good.
I'm
That's
very
good.
well,
That's
thank
good.
you.
What a morning.
Now let's get started. Why are we seeing an upsurge in migration, really? Not just about Nigeria, but other African countries.
Yeah.
And the migration, we really see it's around people moving from Africa to other places around the world, especially the Western countries, the
Yeah.
US, the UK, Canada,
Yeah.
some other Western countries. Why do you think that there's been an upsurge in migration, at least in the last 3 years?
Yeah, definitely. I know, especially for the U.S., and I must start from there. We got in the last 3 years, an upsurge of over 128 or so, 30 million, 130 million migrating into the United States. And one of the major reasons that migration take place is for refugee purposes, economic purposes, because a lot of countries, especially within the African region, there are civil unrest, which causes people to migrate to another country, especially within the African country, and then you see that migration happening a lot within the Western, especially the United States. Because a lot of the migration, as an immigration attorney, handle a lot of asylum cases. When Nigeria went through the Boko Haram issue, there was a whole surge, and then there was another issue where there were Christians, religious persecution. So we saw that wave of people coming to the United States and filing for asylum. For asylum. And so I think the second major reason is for economic purpose. Most of
I thought that was actually number one.
I mean, depending on which country they're going to.
Okay.
If you were to apply for a visitor visa from wherever country and then say, I'm going for economic reasons, it will be deemed fraudulent.
Exactly.
So misrepresentation. So you can't say, I'm going to the United States for economic reasons, although they maybe your background reasons for economic, but you have to say I'm going to visit. But most people who legitimately come, migrate, is for asylum purpose when they come, especially to the United States.
Now, what are the migration trends to watch, especially as we are, of course, in the new year, the second month of a new year? For example, here in Nigeria, we have what we call the Japa syndrome. So I don't know if you're used to that term, because I know you're Liberian.
I'm born in Liberia, but I live in
the US. Yes. There's what we call Japa. What it means is like exodus. Exodus of Nigerians are leaving. There's many Nigerians are leaving now to seek greener pastures in other countries, the US, of course. So what do you think are the migration trends to what? Because for last year, just like you said, a whole lot of stuff were on.
Exactly.
So can you just speak about that a bit?
Well, I think, again, my experience as an immigration attorney, when most of the, now a lot of the Nigerians that I'm seeing in my office, they're coming for economic reasons. But most of them, when they come in order to stay permanently in the U.S., they are seeking, again, the asylum, or we have seen some small trend in investments, the investor visas.
Like citizenship by investment?
To get permanent residency by investing into the United States. Because the United States want to attract the best, and that's what they say. So if you fall under the category of what we call the EB-5, which is an investor who wants to go and set up a business in the United States, I've seen a small growth in that. When there was a small surge in economic strength in Nigeria, even though the economy here, it's, we can't touch that one.
The U.S. still has its own issues. Inflation and all of that. You know what I'm talking about. There's nothing $1 again in the U.S.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I think I would touch on a bit when people feel like they want to get the visitor visas, because that's the majority of the type of visas that people get when they come to the United States. For whatever reason or their motive, they apply for that visa to migrate to the United States. And then outside of that is the asylum. Once they get the visitor visa, they come to the U.S. and then they apply for asylum, because you don't have anything else really except you tell the U.S. government, I'm afraid to go back to my country for whatever reason. But I've seen people now through education. You have to understand that the visitor visa is not the only type of visa. You know, those who are in professional degrees, advanced degree areas, they can apply to go, so that you're not jeopardizing your stay under a visitor visa and coming and then trying to switch that visa. Now you have to prove that I acquired that visa really not by misrepresentation, but I acquired it because I'm just coming to visit. There's the EB-5s, the EB-4s, which are religious visas, people, especially pastors, to actually get your permanent residence before you even get to the United States. I've seen that search, but let's jump back a bit with the ban under Trump. So we saw that there was a stall for Nigerians under the Trump administration because they fell under the ban in one of the countries that was on the ban. So between 2019 and the time Joe Biden took office, there was a dramatic decrease of Nigerians traveling to the U.S. It was a blanket ban, restriction put on them, especially those who were migrating through family members who had petitioned for them. But Joe Biden came into administration and lifted that ban. But you're still suffering a bit, especially to apply for visas, because you're not in one of those countries. Now another trend that I've seen is Nigerians traveling to South American countries and then entering without inspection, driving. So they're going to Mexico because they can get into Mexico, and then they're crossing the border into Texas or California. I've seen that trend pick up a bit. Just because they're going to find their way to get through. But you're right, migration is taking place all over.
Okay, let's take a look at perhaps the do's and don'ts of migration, especially for those that are leaving. Of course, as an immigration attorney, I mentioned earlier the Japa syndrome that we have right now in the country. What do Nigerians need to know? Last year, in 2023, the United States extended visas,
the visa validity
right, to 5 years from 2 years. Nigeria has also reciprocated that to the United States. So for people watching now, what are really the do's and don'ts? Because you've just said some people, many Nigerians, they have economic reasons at the back of their minds, but they want to say they're doing this, they're doing that. So just speak to me about that.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons the visa validity came into place because they're trying to cure the massive backlog. When you were under the ban for all those years under the Trump administration, and they lifted the ban, there was a backlog. So for people who now are applying, you want to make sure you have your financials. That's a big thing, especially if you're coming as a visitor. Make sure you are able to show that you're financially able to take care of yourself. When you go to your interview, sometimes some people mistaken and want to say, well, I'm just going to seek a better life. That's a no-no. I mean, if you're applying for a visitor visa, you're going to have to, all of your response is going to have to center around the fact that I'm going to visit the United States. And then if whatever you are, your life you have established here in Nigeria, in Nigeria, you got to make sure you show evidence that you have strength here. If you're going to school, if you have a job, if you I would take letters from your job to say they've held your position until you come back, because that shows you're not quitting your job and going to find another job. Things like that are important to show your interview officer when you go for your interview. So those are some of your...
What are the implications of not doing the right things?
It can be massive. You can be banned, definitely, from acquiring visas. One of my areas of expertise is deportation. I litigate cases in court, so I handle a lot of deportation cases and people who have been deported. If you're going to apply for visas, any type of visas, make sure you keep records. That is the number one and huge. Africans do not keep records. They give a certain story, for example, and they don't keep records of it or remember. And then even if you do get that visa and go and then want to switch your visa title, they have information. So they're asking you, you know, you might put your birthday as a lower age because you think somehow it's going to help you. Or you might put, I don't have children, but you really do have children. And then you get your visa, you go there, somehow you adjust your status. Now you want to bring your children. That becomes a problem. If you do not keep your records, keep your documents, every paper, every piece of information, every document, keep it. Because you will walk into an interview office for an interview, and you will realize they haven't filed this high. And they will remind you of things that you said before on an interview, perhaps before you even came to their country, that you don't remember. So keeping documents and records critically important.
Like what they say, if you want to hide something from an African, put it in a book.
Is that really a true statement?
Yes. I don't know if it's changing now, not just about Nigerians, perhaps for Africans.
African,
Anything
across the
written,
board.
just put it in a book, people. So perhaps it also applies
Maybe it does.
to documentation.
Yeah, it does.
Now, you mentioned Trump earlier, President Trump. There will be an election later this year in the United States. What do you think would likely happen, assuming that President Trump is voted again as the U.S. president? Because earlier on you submitted, of course, when President Trump was there, we saw what happened, the restrictions and all of that.
Absolutely.
What do you think might likely, as an immigration attorney, are people already concerned? Are they speaking to you about their concerns and all of, what do you see, assuming he wins?
Absolutely. There are a lot of my clients now that are concerned, especially from Nigeria. I spoke to one that says, hurry up and file my papers because if Trump comes, I don't know what's going to happen. So there's an anxiety. And as you know, every U.S. president, every sitting president have the discretion to institute whatever policy. So he can very much come in and reverse again what Biden have in place. But I think the world was not very happy on his approach in the Muslim ban and then with the 6 different countries that he added, which Nigeria was one of them. I don't think he's going to rush to attack that when he takes office. Now, under Trump,
you can never know with President Trump. Anything
well,
can happen.
Let me say this. Under Trump, I was pretty busy.
Oh, okay.
I made a lot more money.
Money. Was it from Nigerians?
No. I mean, just across because even people who had green cards, if you had a marijuana possession or a charge over 10 years ago, they were going to your homes, they were picking you up. So even if you had a green card, it wasn't secured for you. So I was pretty busy. People were in detention. What do I speculate? I think Trump is unpredictable. For the Liberians, before he left office, he passed a law that allowed Liberians who were in the diaspora to adjust their status. And then once they adjusted their status, they immediately was eligible for citizenship. His rationale is Liberia is sort of a child to the United States, so let's do this, for them. So Trump is pretty unpredictable. I don't think he's going to rush, though, to change this ban. He's not going to reverse it because there's no cost to do so. So that's my hope.
That's your hope.
That's my hope.
The U.S. Secretary of State, as we round up, the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, visited Nigeria just a few days ago and held a press conference with our own foreign Affairs Minister, Minister Yusuf Tuga. They made a lot of promises. What do you really see now for Africa, especially as the United States is trying to boost ties with Africa, Nigeria, Liberia inclusive? And you just have a new president, too, in Liberia.
Yes,
former President George Weah was ousted.
Yeah, and
Liberians were not happy with his
graciously bowed out,
yes,
which is unusual for any African president.
He just followed through with what President Jonathan did.
Our
own president did it in 2015.
Oh, okay.
Yes, President Goodluck Jonathan. So I think that also set a good example.
Yeah,
so what do you see for U.S. relationship with African countries?
Well, I think the U.S. needs to really tighten up because what's happening now around the world, Russia and China are becoming more tightened with these African countries because there is a need to kind of upstage the United States. I think there has been a lot of talk for them to tighten up their relationship with Africa because, again, Russia and China are tighten up those relationships with the African countries. Because I think a lot of people now are realizing that the kind of resources that's on the continent, it's more valuable. So there is a stake. I'm hoping that the relationship tightens and the United States do not relax itself, that because we are the #1 power, so we do have control over, in terms of influence, not control, but influence over especially these African countries. By the time, if they do not, I think given in the next 30 years, you will see a dominant influence from Russia and China in the African countries, because you do see a drive and a momentum going up. So one way to see politics is a very funny game.
Very, very funny.
Very funny game.
And as we see many Africans and even Nigerians are moving to the United States, I'm also aware that about 35% of African students in the U.S. are Nigerians. I'm also aware that the U.S. non-migrant visas to Nigerians rose over 200% in 2022.
Absolutely.
So many Nigerians are moving to the United States.
They are moving there. And
despite the Naira's depreciation.
I mean, that's true. And well, what I must add is a lot of Nigerians who are moving there, they are working in professional positions. And what I see, most of them do come back home. They're coming back home to influence their country, whatever they're learning there. I kind of took notice, at the very least, of that trend as well. But yeah, but when a lot of them are there, they do work in professional degree professions and things like that. So that will be helpful, especially even if Trump takes over, to see that they are impacting the economy, they're impacting the community, so they're not just there to take from the U.S., they are indeed giving back. Yeah.
Okay. I think we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It was great to see you and to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And did we plan it almost the same?
I mean, I'm telling you, when I walked in, I saw the colors. I said, that girl is on point.
Thank you very much.
I received the memo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you have a blessed day. I know this is a fast pace.
Very fast pace, high octane. Sure. But thank you very much.